Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S.P. Mishra to the show and happy listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on India Career Center. Today, I'm delighted to host Mr. Ritesh Rajani. He's basically a tech specialist. Apart from that, of course, he is also a specialist DEI as a practitioner. He has also taken initiatives in the LGBTQIA plus initiatives. And also as a techie, he has a patent, US patent for his work in one of his previous organizations. Today, of course, the focus of our discussion is to talk about diversity, especially in the workplace. Since Ritesh has directly worked in those domain areas, I thought the inputs what we get from Ritesh would be very, very valuable. And a lot of his work has been done in some of the best organizations in India. And also, he has been fortunate enough to work in diverse fields and received recognitions from across India, including the President's Award. Ritesh, thank you so much for joining and thank you for your time. And you're joining us today from where?
Thank you for the opportunity. Really a pleasure being here and speaking to all your viewers. I am joining in from Bangalore. My name is Ritesh Rajani. I go by he, him, his pronouns. Um, I'm a Sindhi, but born and raised in Chennai, Madras, right? So Sindhi Madrasi, and have been in Bangalore for more than 12 years now. So currently, I am a principal software engineer. But like as you introduced, I do have some diverse experiences and diverse career graph, which we will talk today.
Fantastic. So, Ritesh, before we jump into the discussion about diversity, tell us briefly about your journey so far. You mentioned you're from Chennai, you belong to a Sindhi family. So, take us through your personal journey first, and then we'll get into the more focused discussion about diversity.
Um, yeah, I had a very normal childhood, I would say, in terms of the family and, of course, coming from a privileged background in terms of being born and raised in a metro city, in a upper middle class background, English speaking, so having all of those privileges, uh, going to a school which is a central board school, having exposure to computer science, tech at a very early age. So I think that I was very sure that I want to be a coder at the age of, 10 or something when I saw my first computer. And we also had a course from our fifth standard onward. So I was pretty much coding from the age of 11, right? And I think it was me being an introvert and not having too many friends and around, not very interested in sports. I think computers was like a good place to put all my energy and focus into. And I was kind of sure that I want to make that a career option. So pursued it academically as well, in terms of the degree, as well as having the support from my family to pursue more focused and more advanced courses from a training institute outside as well. So being that I was able to like get into a software engineering, hardcore software engineering product company, a startup, when I was like 19, right? It was just like I just finished my college and immediately I got a opportunity, and it was right next door to the college. In a
And when
sense,
you
it
say
was very fun.
19, you must be just completed your 12th grade or something, or just.
No, I completed my undergraduation 3 years.
Okay, okay. That
Yeah,
was quite
bachelor.
okay. So you were fast in that. Okay.
They put me in school very early.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Please go ahead.
So, yeah, so joined that startup, which was a very small product company based out of Chennai, but their main business was in the US, right? Kind of a family-owned enterprise, Indian origin uh, startup founders. And that was great because it's a small company and you are like get to learn an extreme amount because there is no process to wait for some trainer to come and tell you. You are just hitting the ground running and you are learning, falling, and evolving through that. And it was a product company, so essentially we were trying to create products in the RFID asset tracking space, which is radio frequency identification. Nowadays, they're very prevalent in phones and fast tags in the highways, but at that time the technology was just emerging and we were seeing how to use it to track a lot of expensive equipment that was moving around.
And this was in which
Uh,
year, Ritesh? Just to give a
so I
context.
joined in 2003.
Okay.
This was 2003, and I was working in this space up to 2011.
Right. Okay.
So because it was a new and emerging space, it also meant there's a lot of innovation that could be done, right? And hence the work that we did was actually patentable, and we eventually were also granted a US patent for an invention in this space. So I had a lot of fun, uh, but I was also running away from a very important aspect of myself, right? Of who I was. And instead of coming and accepting myself, I was just running away and burying myself in the work because I was having fun at work, a great supportive environment in terms of career, in terms of having the freedom to do what we want. Instead of just doing software, I was leading a team, I was directly interacting with clients, I was traveling for deployments, support, right? So like kind of being exposed to the end-to-end product life cycle. Um, but I use that completely to just including my weekends and things. I would just bury myself in work and not want to deal with the realities of life. And this is basically my identity. Not I knew I was gay from a early on age, but I didn't know what it was. I thought there was some problem with me. When I was in my 20s, I had a name for this and having more exposure. But I was always very clear that I will not, I will focus on my career. I'll focus on my family first, and then later I will deal with this. Right. So I was pushing it away. I was bottling it all up. And then in 2011, after my sister got married, I knew that there was a lot of pressure for marriage. It was always there, but it was just building up, and at that time I had no other excuses left. Right? So that's when I decided I need to move out of the city, and through that journey, I came to Bangalore and joined another startup, which was in the retail data science space. And this was looking at how clearance price optimizations are done by retailers in the US. Even in India, we have a lot of times where there's a product and it's being phased out and it goes on clearance sale. So how much deep discount do you give in a way to clear the inventory out, because you don't want to be sitting on that for too long. So how do you structure in a way that you still make money but are also able to get rid of that inventory? So that was also an exciting field, but this was a startup that was more evolved, and it was being acquired by a larger multinational company, right? And that is where I got the exposure to having a formal diversity inclusion team that was doing all of this. And why it was significant for me was because they were talking about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender at that time in India when nobody was talking about it, right? Leave alone workplaces, even the world outside was not talking about it. Barring a few articles in the newspapers here and there, we were largely invisible. But here was an organization that was seeing you, acknowledging your presence, your existence, right? Having policies for you, and eventually they were also having things like insurance benefits and things where they really wanted to understand this community and do something to make that community feel safe and welcome at the workplace. They also had an employee network where people who are more open about themselves, had more accepted themselves. They were part of this group. me to have those role models there, to have those mentors there who have also faced life a lot more than I had faced situations like how do you come out to your family, right? How do you avoid this marriage thing? How do you find relationships? Right? There were people who had partners who were bringing their partners to the office in official events. Seeing that kind of gave me the feeling that we could also lead a normal life, right? Growing up feeling that you're abnormal, you're outcast, going to this organization which had people like you and me working in various levels of the organization, in the leadership included, and having very normal lives and careers, that made a huge difference to me. And that is where I think I found the benefits of what diversity, equity, inclusion was meant to do, right? And I got interested, I got attracted. And as time progressed over like 5 years, while I was still doing my tech job, I was getting more and more involved in the diversity inclusion space where I was not only working in the LGBTIQ space, but also collaborating with the disability space, looking at their needs and challenges, their experiences. Because I'm an able-bodied person, never had interacted, never had friends from the disability world. Again, looking at that community, seeing their world made a lot of difference. Seeing the gender space, seeing how the same marginalizations affect women at the workplace, right? So kind of seeing inclusion not from one lens, but all around holistically, at the workplace, outside work, also going to NGOs, volunteering somewhere, gave me a lot of perspective, a lot of exposure on what it means to be human in the end of the day, right? And it so happened that um, in 2016, a position opened up in the formal HR team that was looking at diversity inclusion. And it was offered to me because of my passion and visibility in this space. It was offered to me, and then I contemplated, of course, how do you move from tech to HR? It's not something usually people do. But because of the passion there and the organization seeing my passion here, seeing my capabilities, they were like, yeah, you don't need a formal background in HR. You don't need to have an MBA in HR to do this because you understand what it means to create that inclusive workplace. And of course, it's also a strategic HR role. It's not just awareness or events, but it's a strategic role looking at the business, looking at profit and loss, and then tying all of that to inclusion, right? So it was a Asia Pacific lead role, which is also very highly visible, working with senior management, working with different layers of management, understanding hiring, understanding retention, understanding talent development was also very exciting because you're looking at it from a very different things that I had not done in tech before. I was also able to interestingly bring my tech expertise into this role because HR also does a lot of analytics, right?
Mm.
Looking at marginalization, looking at exclusion also needs to be backed by data.
Mm.
And me having that background was able to bring that lens into this role as well. So it was a very, very empowering experience personally and professionally, and being able to make a lot of impact also in that work. And that is where all the awards and recognition also that you were talking about came to the organization, which means it also felt good for me personally there. Because while I was doing things within the workplace, there were also other organizations in India trying to reach out and say, how do you all do all of this? Right? It was at that time, Section 377 was there, which criminalized homosexual activities, right? And companies were very afraid of even doing something for this community. They were not even talking about it. They were just running away from this in the perception that it's illegal. It's not illegal for a company, but they thought it's a risk. And they were reaching out saying, how is your organization so loud, so vocal? How are you able to do all of this? How are you personally be able to be open and outside in newspapers and everything? So the fact that organizations were reaching out for various things, and at that time I had a business partner also who was interested in it, like, why don't we make this into a consulting thing? And so organically moved into left the organization and said, instead of doing it for one organization, let me do it for a lot more people and also charge them for it, right? and went into diversity inclusion consulting. This was 2019, and was also interested in creating AI. I mean, my tech, once you're a techie, the techie never goes away.
Mm.
So I had seen the issues and the challenges with the dev community in terms of communication and being excluded from basic communication, which happens, right? So I had some ideas for a product which will use AI. At that time, AI had emerged to a level which could speech to text, and text to speech was very stable. And I was like, why are people not using it to do something for the dev community? And I did do some prototypes and was able to use them in a few conferences, get great feedback. Unfortunately, COVID hit at that time in 2020, and a lot of things changed in terms of the market for that prototype and product. It went away, everything moved online. There was no need for in-person conferences anymore. Also, a lot of uncertainty in HR, in budgets for diversity inclusion, the kind of work that I wanted to do, it was not coming to us as a consultant. So uh, switched organically. It just happened that I got a chance to switch back to tech. Tech being a comfort zone, it was always a passion, right? From age 11. So again, was blessed and privileged to have that opportunity at the right time, switch back to tech and retail data science, and now looking at supply chain and purchasing optimization. So a very different journey through HR and coming back to tech, you would say.
Okay, so first one which I wanted to know is you earlier mentioned that you knew that you belong to a gay community very early in life. How was that process actually? Because I'm also trying to learn what actually happens.
Sure. So thank you for asking about it. uh, what happens is when you grow up, you're in your 10th standard, 9th standard, 10th standard, senior secondary school, you see that your friends are talking about women in certain way, women are talking about men in certain way. You see movies, you see all of that, and you're like, why am I not feeling the same things that others are feeling? Right? Why is it that I don't see the world the same way as others are seeing around me? And why am I dreaming about being with a guy, right? Socially, romantically, sexually, why are my feelings so different? What is wrong with me? And this was when I was in my late teens, right? And I think even though coming from privilege and having exposure to media, I could not come across the word gay or homosexual or anything like that until a long time. And I think I also resented porn, so I never kind of went after it for whatever reason. I was always scared that if I searched something, somebody would find out, right? That fear was there that nobody should know about these feelings that I have. So in that fear of hiding, you would say I stopped reaching out. I did not even seek information or seek help or seek understanding until in my 20s. So that is when I kind of came across the word homosexual, gay, and this is the time I was already working because I started working at 19, right? So it's very unusual that after you reached a workplace, you're kind of discovering your identity. It's late, but I think it was my own apprehensions and fears that prevented me from going there. And once I knew about it, it still took me some time to accept it. First, I was in denial, saying, no, I can't be that. And then eventually I was like, I guess I am that. Nothing is changing. I thought it would go away, but now I'm like in my early 20s, 23, 24, and nothing has changed. So that's where you start accepting. But at the same time, I was still very afraid to even go out, meet anybody. I kind of bottled everything up and I resented doing any of that, and I buried myself in work. So I would say, to answer your question in one line, it was a lot of insecurity about myself. It was a lot of fear and apprehension that others would find out, and you're kind of living in that threatening situation while everybody else is asking you, why are you not married? Why don't you have a girlfriend? Even at the workplace, people will just, because I was already like in a mid senior position, right? And people who are junior to me would get married, and somehow in the lunch, the conversation will come back to why is Ritesh not getting married? And what I would start doing is avoiding lunch, right? I would either eat early or eat very late. I would avoid having these conversations because it just makes me very uncomfortable. So yeah, it was that kind of a phase was difficult. That's why I was covering up, trying to do other things.
Mm. Now, do you think the situation in today's time is different? I mean, a young person can deal with this in a different way in today's times?
So I would say there is more access to information.
Okay.
There is more visibility in media. You look at any of the OTT series now, we always have a LGBTQ character somewhere. I mean, whether it's a right representation or wrong, but we have a representation, right? While there is more visibility, there are two things. It doesn't make it easy for the person because when it comes to yourself, the journey of insecurity, the journey of what will my parents say, um, denial, and all those emotions are still going to be there. I mean, that has not changed for people, right? Of course, maybe the timeline has shifted. For somebody who was doing this discovery in their late or mid 20s or early 20s, now maybe it is a little earlier. The fact that schools also have some counselors, at least the urban elite schools have started having it. I think it's probably better, but individually for a person, the experiences of dealing with your own identity is as difficult as it was earlier. I don't think that gets, there is no shortcut to that. You still have to go through that journey. It may be longer and more difficult for some people. It may be easier for some people as well, depending on the family background or exposure. Right, the same, I mean, my journey in an urban privileged setup would be very different from somebody coming from a tier 2, tier 3 city or a rural background where we don't even have terminologies for these things in regional vernacular languages, right? Their journey would obviously be very different and continues to be. And even today, a large percentage of the queer community is not open about themselves, right? They get married to heterosexual partners. They are living in hiding. Trans individuals, not all of them come out and choose to be who they are. They are still living or being suppressed in the heteronormative, world that is there outside. So it is a mix. I would say it's gotten better in some respects, but the individual journeys are still as difficult as they were earlier.
Mm. And possibly it is a journey for even the parents and the family members also, isn't it? I mean, how was it for you? I mean, if I can ask that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I resorted for a long time to run away from this, right? When I got my exposure at the workplace with that group, then is when I felt like, okay, I should uh, do something. But one of the main reasons I even moved out of home was the fear that if I tell my family, I'll be thrown out of the house, right?
Mm.
And for someone who had lived in Chennai with parents, school, college, work, post graduation, while I was working, computer class, it was all in the same city, right? And for me, it was like if I have to even explore this, I need to do in a safe environment because otherwise somebody will find out. If I meet somebody, I will end up running into a friend, right? It's a mall or the beach, or it was just a fear, right? So I wanted to uh, get out, be more independent socially. While I was financially independent, I was not socially independent, right? I wanted to be able to live by myself, learn to cook, learn to lead a life, saying if my parents and family disown me, I will still be able to survive. And a lot of queer individuals have that journey where they have that fear that we will think of the extreme situations. It's not unfounded. There are cases of honor killings. There are cases of families rejecting their children more for trans and non-binary individuals. It still happens, but largely it's also a fear that we internalize because we have seen a very wrong representation, or we have that fear that plays into our mind saying we expect the worst out of our own families, right? For me, while I expected the worst, I came to Bangalore, had this workplace group, got that confidence. Then I was like, I will now share to my family why I don't want to get married. Because as Indian families, everybody has these hopes and expectations that they build a picture in their mind that they will have a wedding, they will have grandkids, they'll have a certain image of what it means to be normal in the society. Breaking that image for your parents is the most difficult thing you can do. Right? When you're coming out and you're telling them this, the first thing they think of is, my child cannot have a normal life. And that for my parents also was difficult. So there was a lot of drama, there was a lot of crying, there's a lot of rona dona from both sides, right? And it took a lot of time. It also took a lot of reiteration because every time you do this, they stop talking about it. And again, 6 months later, they were like, why are you wasting your life? Shadi kar le, get married. Uh, you know, you'll everything will be okay once you get married. And it comes out of their desperation and their hopes. I wouldn't blame them. Of course, at that time, I was also rebelling a lot. But over time, I know that, you know, they are also coming from a place where you have to listen, understand to them, because you as a person took maybe a decade. I as a person took a decade to understand who I am. Why am I expecting them to understand in 1 month or 2 months or 1 year? Right? So it's unfair on them that they should also understand immediately. So we have to give time. We have to give them exposure also. I made them meet my friends. I made them meet different support groups that were there, take them to a few events. I think over time, they're somewhere in between understanding and acceptance. I wouldn't say 100% acceptance can come, but I'm still very happy that they have at least let me be who I am, not forced me into, getting married, or forcing me into a certain type of life that I don't resonate with. So over time, we have gotten better. We've also gotten closer in many ways when, we've seen problems together. So it's also brought us closer now. Now we are also living together again. So I would say, yeah, it has been a long journey of more than 10 years, but we've gotten to a place where we can coexist.
Okay, I think it was both like an introduction to you. It was important for me to also understand everything. And the whole idea of this conversation is to understand you as a representative of a community which is often not given the right kind of due in terms of the kind of importance it should be given. So coming into now our
Just
discussion,
one
yeah,
moment. Just one moment, Siba. So when you say I'm a representative, I would just slightly clarify that my journey and my identity of being gay is still very one small part of this diverse community, right? There's so many letters in this
I know.
alphabet soup,
I'm actually
LGBTQIA.
coming to that as well. Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
So I wouldn't say I'm a representative. I'm a representative of one small aspect, also coming from a very privileged side. So there are so many other stories and so many other identities and experiences that probably will have to come to your channel to actually get a full picture. Yeah,
Why
please go
not?
ahead now.
Yeah, why not? I think that would be also an opportunity for me to learn. I mean, this is one area which I honestly want to know, and hopefully these conversations will help create the conversations in the homes of people where there are situations like you. I
Sure.
hope a young Ritesh somewhere in India, somewhere in the world, if he or he sees, dealing with this situation, how to deal this. Okay, you have actually seen it all, done it all. So now let us bring the context of organizations. So
Sure.
now looking at organizations, why do you think that the diversity, equity, and inclusion are important parameters for organizations to look at it more seriously? Of course, you are somebody who has lived it, done it. Can you bring your lived experience into how this is important for organizations?
Sure. See, the world is unequal place, right? It's an unfair place. All of us start at different lines in a race, right? When you have a race, the starting line is very different for different people, and it could be because of a lot of levels of marginalizations, experiences, inequities, life situations, right? Um, but our systems are created where we expect things for everyone to be equal, right?
Mm.
Whether it is an examination, whether it is a interview, whether it is a work criteria, uh, we set it at a level of so-called merit that we feel like everyone's needs, challenges are the same. Everyone's criteria is the same, right? But that is not the case. We all have different starting points, and understanding what equity versus equality is. Equity means that you understand that all of us are different and our needs, challenges, levels at which we work are all different. And addressing those gaps is first required before we can say we have equality, right? We cannot just say that, yes, all of us are equal, and everything will magically happen, right? An example I'd give you that I can say that I'm going to recruit somebody who has a disability, a mobility disability, a locomotor disability. I am open to recruiting. I can just say it. But just by saying it, can I expect someone to come and work like everybody else? Maybe not, because I have to make some changes to the infrastructure. I have to probably provide cabs for someone to even come to the office, because our public transport is inaccessible, right? So somebody using a crutch or a wheelchair will never even be able to come to the workplace, even if you're saying, I'm okay recruiting anybody from this community, right? So that adjustment that we do, understanding that we are not equal and we are needs, there is certain needs that we have to do even for someone to come and work like everybody else. That is what we call as bridging the gap or bringing equity. And once you have that equity, is then you can sort of expect that at some point we will have equality, right? So for an organization um, to be fair to everyone, to be just to everyone, we need to have diversity, equity, inclusion. There are communities which face discrimination every day, right? Which actively people will say, I do not want to recruit this person because I believe they will not do the job. Or there is a bias there saying, oh, a transgender person, no, they are not going to fit into our culture. So we need those systems, we need those processes which tell us that we are going to create a workplace where there is no discrimination, there is no harassment, there is no bullying, regardless of who you are. So that there needs to be work done to be able to get to that place. Again, by just by saying it is not going to happen, right? So that is where I feel like organizations need to be conscious about diversity, equity, inclusion to be able to serve the needs of all its people. Now, why do you even do that? You do that because it makes you a better organization internally in terms of your employees, but also externally in understanding what the world needs. Let's say you're creating a product. If you are only having one kind of people, they will only understand the needs of one community and make products for that. Eventually, your pool that you're going to be selling to is going to be limited. Now, the world outside is diverse. So you need that diversity to be reflected inside, right? Only then you can come up with things that really people require. We have e-commerce companies in India today, right? This whole cash on delivery thing was not something that was there in the US or any other country. It came here because of the specific needs of this country, of different groups that are part of this country, right? Different economic situations that we need to adhere to. And we make our products, services, our technology better when we have different perspectives. Even AI needs to be trained on a lot of diverse training data sets to be fair and equal. Otherwise, AI is also going to be biased, right? So, diversity, equity, inclusion, in summary, is about creating those fair, equitable practices internally so that you can have a diverse representation inside to cater to a more wider audience and be a better organization outside as well.
Fantastic. So I think you brought the context of organizational benefits when there is a diversity, because ultimately the target audience is very diverse. I think that's a fair point with respect to why organizations want to do that. But I think we'll take a short break and join again on the other side, and where we'll see what are the challenges. I mean, if this is something which is so straightforward and simple, then why there are so many challenges what we have. So we'll get into that conversation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Ritesh. So before the break, we were talking about why diversity is important for organizations. While it sounds like a no-brainer that diversity is actually required to be able to cater to diverse group of people who are the target audience, why there are challenges for organizations to adopt to such a strategy?
I mean, it's a very loaded question, I would say, because there is no one reason why organizations don't want to do it, right? One could be that any change, especially when it comes to change of mindsets and cultures, of bringing somebody who doesn't look like you, who doesn't, have the same experiences, the same background. Maybe they don't eat the same food as you. They don't have the same last names as you, creates discomfort, right? As humans, we are used to familiarity, and familiarity gives us some comfort. And the moment you're trying to shake things up by bringing people who are different, it gets uncomfortable. It gets uncomfortable for many reasons, right? It could be because of some of the biases and stereotypes that we are exposed to while we are growing up, right? We have so many biases with respect to religions today. We have so many biases with respect to caste. The languages that we speak, there is so many different groups. At workplaces, we tend to form these groups, right? So anytime you want to make a change and uh, shake the status quo, there is always discomfort. The question is, why do we want these people in? Will they fit in with our culture if you're hiring them? What about people who are already there, right? For example, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community, we are all there. It's just that we may not be open about it. We may be your boss, we may be your client, we may be your vendor. Just we're not open about it. So if someone is just sitting there and cracking transphobic jokes, making fun of trans people, and there is actually someone there who is trans, you can imagine how they feel, right? So uh, it is uncomfortable for people to get used to change. That is one reason. I would also say that it requires effort, right? Organizations, to make this cultural change, to make this shift of mindset, it requires efforts. It's not about, sometimes organizations resort to a shortcut where they do events and they call some speakers, and through that they will say that, you know what, we are all very inclusive, we love to see your experiences. We'll call a person with disability, LGBTQ person. They'll call somebody from a religion, and they'll just try to show that we have a diverse community here, and we are everything is okay. But you really need to go and drill down the levels, right? And see, are is everybody trying is everybody being promoted at the same rate? How does your senior management look like? How does your board members look like? Are they all men? Are they all a certain gender? Do you have anybody who is openly transgender, openly gay, openly lesbian? If they are not, then why not? How many people with disabilities do you even have? Are they only in the entry level roles? Is there anybody who is a manager? Right? How does the caste demographic look? So all these things require you to analyze, introspect, understand. And if the answer is no, I don't even have such people, or I don't know enough, it means you have created some barrier somewhere, right? Maybe those people are not even coming into the organization. Why are they not coming into the organization? Maybe your hiring process needs to be looked at. No? Maybe there is some barriers to entry in the hiring itself. Maybe you put a big visual image there saying, I have a job opening. That image was not able to be read by a blind person who was using a screen reader. So they didn't even know that there was job opening because you put out an image which is inaccessible to them, right? Maybe your interview room was, maybe the trans person who was getting to the interview place was kicked out by the security guard. She was not even allowed to come inside. So your recruitment process will not magically become inclusive. You have to do effort and you have to sensitize at every level that there is, right? Including the staff, at the security, at the housekeeping and other things. So all of this requires effort, and it requires time and effort and investment in terms of budgets as well, right? To make changes in systems, processes, infrastructure also requires budgets. So I think these are all maybe the deterrents to being inclusive. But I would say the biggest deterrent is the mindset of leadership to even do this, to say, why do we even need to be inclusive? Sometimes can become the biggest barrier to do anything related to inclusion.
The most of the organizations, of course, the professional organizations are led by a group of people, and of course also are controlled through different stakeholding, and if
Yeah.
somebody is a listed company, then obviously there are other methods to have control on the policies and things like that. But a large part of it, is it not leadership driven actually? I mean, and the policy gets formulated based on the leader on top. What
Great,
has been
great
your?
point. Yeah, great perspective, Subha there. So, people are doing diversity inclusion in many organizations today, right? And they're doing it for various reasons. Like you said, it could be legislative, where today we have legislations, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. We have legislations in the gender space where your board needs to have certain percentages, right? There are also anti-caste laws, labor laws, and uh, laws related to maternity, where we have made a lot of changes with respect to how we need to be inclusive to new mothers, to pregnant women, all of that, right? So a lot of companies have only done it or become inclusive. There are companies who have been early adopters, who have been self-initiated before it was a legal mandate. Why did they do that? Again, there could be multiple. Maybe they were a multinational company and their global charters required them to do it in India. That could be one reason they were doing it. And of course, there are genuine companies who feel like it's the right thing to do. Right? There are very hardcore Indian companies who are LGBT inclusive because there were people in the leadership who understood it, right? Or people from the community who also asked for it there, asked for the change to happen. So there are companies in India who had done it without any legal mandate because it was a right thing to do. Right? So it does depend on the leadership. It does depend on the culture of the company as well. And let me clarify, it does not have to be a large company. There are very small startups who are just inclusive. They don't have policies. They don't have formal, anything written down. But the culture is open that you can be who you are, right? And you can still, your leaders are empathetic to your needs. They understand, you know, life situations. They are able to be accommodative of various needs without anybody having to write that down into a book. So I think it just depends on the culture and the leadership for sure, like you were saying.
Okay. Now, let us look at some of your successful initiatives. You have done so many things. I think we need an entire episode for that. But if you can briefly talk us through that.
Sure, you're being too kind there. I mean, there are a lot of people in this space who have been doing great work, a lot of institutions, a lot of non-profits. So it's not without their without the foundation that they have laid that I could have gotten here, or even organizations could have gotten here, right? So let's also acknowledge that it's a lot of activism and advocacy starts with grassroots communities, non-profits, NGOs, and then trickles down into the organizations who learn from them and adopt it to their needs. Some initiatives that I would like to share, which are very fond and dear to my heart, are so in the organization that where I was leading diversity at some point, and even when I was not the leader, but I was part of the group, we rolled out benefits for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. So we rolled out same gender partner benefits. So for someone who has a same gender partner, maybe a lesbian couple or gay couple, and one of the employees is in the organization, their partner would be covered in the medical insurance. So if they have a hospitalization, the partner would be covered. And this was rolled out when Section 377 was there. The company literally had to fight and work with the insurers to roll this out, because insurance companies also were not willing to do it, right? So you had to change not the system inside, but also outside. Insurer, the insurance broker, the third party, TPA, as they call it, which processes the claims, the entire ecosystem had to be sensitized. The impact of this was this friend of mine, or the person who was working there, who had this partner who was very open, who brought his partner to the company's events, right? Once we had the insurance benefit rolled out, there was an insurance card, like how you have this card for your spouse or parents. The card that the organization issued, they issued it for his partner, and it said relationship partner.
Mm.
And when that was there, he reached out to me and he was like, Ritesh, in our 10 years of being together, this is the first official document that recognizes us as a couple. And he had
Wow.
tears in his eyes. I had tears in my eyes. I still have it now. So, um,
It's a
very simple.
goosebump. It's a goosebump
Yeah,
moment, actually.
absolutely. It's a total goosebump moment because you don't realize that a small thing you've done can have such a big impact on somebody's life. They didn't even claim the insurance. They just got the card, right? And that card said that it's a partner, and it made a huge difference to them. Similar thing, we were one of the first organizations in India to roll out benefits for the transgender community. So, transgender people are those who are assigned a particular gender at their birth, right? The doctor looks at them and then gives a certificate. But as they grow up, they don't identify with that gender, right? So that is what we mean by transgender. And through the life journeys, there are transgender persons who say that they may want to get some surgeries for gender affirmation, right? Or sex change, as they used to earlier call it. And these are really expensive surgeries. They're also very complex medical surgeries. Ours was the first organization who said, in the insurance, we are going to cover these surgeries and these procedures. We will also grant leaves because these surgeries may take 3, 4, 5 weeks for the person to recover. We have to remember that these are not special benefits. These are benefits that are there for everyone, right? Just like somebody would have a benefit for insurance for cancer or heart surgery, or specific to their life. This is also a life stage. And if the organization is not giving this insurance or not giving the leaves, they are leaving the employee's health at risk. Right? That's why organizations give the benefit. So the same way it is required for a transgender person or an LGBT person. So again, we had an employee a transgender man who took up this surgery traveled alone because his family was not 100% supportive, was alone, went to the hospital in a different city, got the surgery done, had to do the insurance work, paperwork, as well as the medical thing that he had to undergo, right? And you know how it is complicated. The moment you go to a hospital, doing this paperwork is a very stressful
Yeah.
process. But he was alone, he was able to do it. Of course, it was stressful, but the good thing was we had an organization, somebody on call from the insurance and the benefits team who was helping the person. And again, that had a huge impact on his life, also his loyalty towards the company, right? When you do these kind of things, the employees in that company, when they see that your company is caring for you in these ways, they are very passionately loyal to them. Today, I have left this organization. It's been more than 8 years I've left them. But the value, the respect I hold for that organization is immeasurable, right? I would gladly go and name them and speak on their behalf if they allowed me to. So that's the passion we have. So that's one benefit. The other thing I would like to say is something I had done outside of the workplace, right? While I was also involved in advocacy and activism outside, we have pride marches in India for the last 15, 20 years. Calcutta actually had its 25th year pride parade. Bangalore had a 17th, 16th or 17th pride parade in November. Uh, what we have seen is the pride parades, while they're inclusive to LGBTQ individuals, they also get exclusive. It excludes persons with disabilities or elder people because it's a walk. And walking through 2, 3, 4 kilometers in Bangalore city with all the traffic can be inaccessible for a lot of people. So a group of us got together and we did India's first accessible pride in 2016, where we had sign language interpreters, we had cabs, wheelchair enabled cabs, assistive cabs. We ensured there were volunteers for people who are blind to assist them through the parade. Not only assist them, also give them an experience of what is happening around, explaining them, helping them experience it. So it was more of an intersectional effort that we did of making our own Pride Parade more inclusive and more accessible to people outside. So this was a very initiative that I am very fond of as well. We also did some work in the mental health space. Now, with any marginalized community, because you're dealing with so much of emotions and you're dealing with bullying, harassment, sometimes physical, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, it gets difficult, right? And not all of us are equipped to deal with this. And unfortunately, there are a lot of suicide cases in these marginalized communities, in the disability community, in the LGBT community, especially in the transgender community. Transgender children and transgender individuals are at 5 times more risk than lesbian, gay, bisexual individuals, right? So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of creating these support systems for counseling, for mental health support. And again, in India, we don't have that many counselors to start with, and counselors who understand this community, right? There were a lot of psychiatrists who would prescribe conversion therapy. So a parent would take their child to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatric would just prescribe drugs saying that we will change your child. And that has a huge detriment effect. So having inclusive mental health professionals itself is a very small, very small percentage of practitioners who can help this community. So there was a need for creating peer support, which means people who are visible like me, who are comfortable and open, where people reach out, maybe through dating apps, through some space, we would meet them, they would be in trouble, and they would reach out. I don't know how to help them because let's say somebody is suicidal and reaches out to me and says, you know what, I'm done with life. I don't know how to help them because I am scared that I might say something or do something. That's a very sensitive situation.
Mhm.
And I am not trained in how to handle it, right? I am just trying to be there for that person. Maybe I'm a friend, maybe I'm a stranger, but I am also scared when somebody says something like that to me, right? And so we did some trainings on peer support, on how you can give the first aid. While you're not a professional, you do something called as an emotional first aid, where you're able to manage that situation for the time being till you give it to a more trained professional. So that is what we did. Similar to how a first aid works in a physical harm condition, right? Accident. You just give the first aid so that till the ambulance arrives, you're able to manage the situation. So this is emotional first aid. And we trained, I think, 40 or 50 peer counselors across India to be able to give the peer support in these critical situations. So that's again a very fond initiative outside of the workplace that I carry. Other than that, I think, yeah, work for new mothers, you know, a breastfeeding policy, some things that were never heard of in India, right? We were able to do that kind of work. Also, work in the HIV prevention space, where there are a lot of um, policies which are discriminatory, whether it's insurance or whether internal recruitment, right? There would be companies who just do a HIV test for no reason at all. It's nothing related to the work, and they would do a HIV test. Of course, now we have laws where a company cannot ask for a HIV test unless it's really a medical space or something. They cannot ask for it. But to be able to give awareness that it's not legal to ask for such things, or what is the right way to be inclusive to the needs of that community, that's also something we did. So yeah, I think these are some initiatives that I am fond of.
Fantastic. So you mentioned about these peer counseling. So I was just thinking that if somebody who is a young person now wanting to reach out to some kind of support, which is like
Yeah.
online, of course, online there are so many things which is available. But is there some organization or a number where somebody can actually dial and confide
Sure.
his or her situation?
So you have a lot of organizations working in this space. In general, in the mental health space, you have things like iCall. You have a lot of helplines for domestic violence related support, children related support. Um, in the LGBTQ space, you have a lot of NGOs nonprofits who run these helplines. For example, in Bangalore, you have an organization called Swabhava that has been running a helpline. They have a number you can call in for the last 25 years now, right? Um, there's also a support group called Good as You. Uh, it's acronym for GAY, Good as You Bangalore. But of course, it is beyond just gay. It's for all identities within the LGBTQIA spectrum that has been active. We just celebrated our 30 years of being active in Bangalore. So it meets every Thursday. I was there in the meeting yesterday where we have people, new people even today. Like even yesterday, there were two new people in the room, right? And that space every Thursday at 7 p.m. is open. Somebody who is from this community can come there, talk, reach out to people. And there are always about 20, 25 people who show up to these meetings, regardless of whether it's a festival or a holiday or a band or COVID, we had it online as well. So across India, there are many such support groups and organizations. I think there are some pages on online which have a listing of all these resources.
Sure, I
Yeah,
think
there
we
are
can share that in the show notes. That would be nice.
that'll be great if we can share it here.
Yeah, yeah,
I can share.
definitely. Now, moving on, let's look at some of the challenges which you encountered. Of course, there would be many as well in terms of your work and how you actually address them.
I think the biggest challenges, like I was saying earlier, are challenges of mindsets, right? And sometimes it requires you to just listen with empathy, even if you don't agree with the other person's views. Today, we are also in a very polarized political and social situation, right? There are so many contradictory views. People don't I don't think we can have a civil debate anymore. It has become so polarized that it's either your way or my way, right? And there is no in between. There is no listening that is happening. It's only shouting from either side. And that is percolating to the workplace as well. It is a very, again, it's a topic of inclusion in the end of the day, right? So often it's hard to change mindsets when there is no empathy, there is no listening, there is no compassion. Also, there is disregard for the other person's life or dignity. Right? I think that has been the biggest challenge when somebody doesn't even treat you like a human being. They don't even care about what your experiences are and how do you make somebody's life better. Unfortunately, we have those people everywhere, including in organizations, right? And they become roadblocks. Even if there are five people who are well intended, they want to make a change, one person like this will come and say, I want to play devil's advocate, right? And they will say something completely to derail the whole thing, right? Dealing with them is very difficult. You have to be very patient, allow for dissenting views. Uh, I mean, you as a person know that what they are saying is completely against human rights or completely against anybody's dignity, but you have to take a deep breath in that moment. Uh, Let them finish, let them say what they have to say, even if it is heavily problematic, and then try to um, give them exposure, try to bring life experiences of not just you, but a lot of others. Um, yeah, and that some groundwork, some dirty work has to be done. I mean, I know in an ideal situation, we shouldn't have to struggle so much to get basic dignity or human rights across in somebody's mind, but it's a cost that you have to bear to be able to do that work of changing mindsets. Right? I think those have been the biggest challenges. And of late, there's a lot of open hate, right, against various communities, including LGBTQ. And dealing with that hate is becoming harder and harder. Earlier, the hate would be anonymous, it would be online, again from anonymous profiles. Today, it is online. We used to call them trolls, right? Today, these are not trolls. They are your family members in those groups writing those hateful comments. They are your cousins. They are your co-workers, not just on Instagram or Facebook. It is happening on LinkedIn, right? And these are not people you say, oh, these are older generation people who don't understand. But these are people who are Gen Z. They are young and they are spreading vile hate against other human beings without having to hide behind a mask, right? They are empowered enough to use their real names, real profiles, and show who they are with all their hate. How do you deal with this? Getting it, I don't think I have an answer on how to deal with it, but it's just getting harder and harder, unfortunately.
Normal life also. I mean, yours
Yeah.
is a special category altogether, but in normal life also, I think people have lost the ability to debate in a civil manner. I think that is what is that's the reality of today. I think we need to accept. Mm.
Yeah, it's a lack of patience. It's the whole, real culture. 15 seconds, you get an opinion. You get a lot of misinformation there. So people are being swayed very quickly and very easily.
Okay. So moving on now, what would be your advice to parents who have to, support their children in terms of making them understand and understand and accept diversity and inclusion? I think if we have to bring some change, it has to start from home at an early age, and
Yeah.
that's how probably the change can happen. It's not going to be easy, but at least if we recognize that and start conversing at home with young children, I think that would help. So what is your opinion? What is your advice rather to parents?
I don't think I'm an expert in the topic of parenting or uh, being able to give like a recommendation, but I can just say things from my experiences with various parents, various groups. The biggest thing that a parent can do is for themselves understand that there are different ways of being, right? What is normal? Sometimes we have our own sense of what a normal is, but to accept that there are thousands of normal, question why do you say that this is not right? Whether it's a disability, whether it is, sometimes a lot of stereotypes and biases are floating around in families, right? Oh, don't have friends from this group because they are certain way. So to be able to question that and allow space for discussion and understanding that that's only one way of being, right? There are many ways of being. You can be who you are, whether it is your career choices, whether it is your identity of who you belong, whether it's your faith, what you want to worship, what you don't want to worship, whether it's your food. I don't want to eat certain things, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, uh, uh, leaving all those choices to the children and allowing them to be who they are, to express, right? Of course, you have to guide, you have to be there and make sure they're not getting into the wrong direction. That I am totally, because there are so much of issues also happening today, right? But being there as a friend, being there as someone your parents, your children can talk to is important, not shutting the door, right? Sometimes parents, they give their opinion and they shut the door. I think keeping that door open, because for a child to be able to share something with their parent, they have to feel that psychological safety, right?
Mm.
So I think that is the biggest thing. If your parent is not creating that safety for you to even go and say something, okay, I messed up, I am scared, I failed in my exam, I am gay, I am transgender, whatever it is, right? If the parent is not creating that space for a child, the child will start bottling everything up inside. And that will eventually lead to bigger and bigger problems, right? The child will feel like they have to hide whatever aspect they're hiding, right? They will start hiding, and that again is not nice. It's not going to be healthy mentally and physically at some point. um, because then the child will start finding spaces outside of their parents to reach out to, and that can land them in trouble, right? So I think just being able to listen to your child, talk to your child, creating that bond and safety with your child is very important. I can give you an example.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so I'll try to give this example in a short way. I had this colleague and friend who was staying with me for a couple of months because of some housing situation that they had, right? So I was living by myself at that time. I was like, "Huh, you can come and stay with me. It's a temporary thing." Uh, and I was not open about myself to them. This is about more than 10 years ago. I was also still in a journey of slowly coming out to small groups, right? It's not a one-time thing. It's like you find your safety and then you do. Now, this person was with me at home, and some random conversation came up, right? And I felt safe to tell them about me. This person comes from a very small town in India, in North India, and I mean their exposure level, their English is limited. Like I mean, I understood that. So they obviously I knew that they may not understand it completely, but they were at my house, right? So I was in a physically safe space. I was in a mentally safe space. I was like, what is the worst that will happen? He will be uncomfortable. He will leave. His problem, not mine. So I took the liberty of saying it, and his jaw dropped. He was like, भाई ऐसे नहीं होता है, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? And I was like, हो सकता है, क्यों नहीं हो सकता है? And then had a long discussion. He asked a lot of silly questions, a lot of banal questions. And I was there, ठीक है, I explained patiently. So this conversation happened, and I wouldn't say he was completely comfortable. He was still a little like, trying to figure it out, which was okay. He didn't leave my house. He was still there. we still had that connection and friendship. Few months later, um, he goes to his hometown for a festival, and there he meets a relative, a distant relative, who has come to his house, and is generally some, far relative is talking about her child, and he's there. She's talking to his mother. He's just there in the hall, is listening, and she's telling his mother that my child is doing all feminine things. A male child is doing all feminine things, applying lipstick and लड़कियों के जैसे हरकतें कर रहा है. And the mother said कि I physically gave him some beating, and he didn't listen, so I have locked him up in the house.
Mhm.
Right? Uh, so my friend is there, and because he had asked a lot of things to me, and he had some back context there. He just went and told her, "Look, that's your child, right? Why do you want to beat him? Why do you want to lock him or lock them up? Just let them be, right?" And he didn't stop there. He told, "Baat karao. Let me talk to the child." He spoke to the child and he told the child, "If your mother beats you again, you call me." So, I still get teared up when I say this, that my saying something to someone, right, had such a impact. I never realized this person, random person, colleague, I did not have such a great equation with, eventually there, just listen to me, my story was able to take to somebody else, and you know just tell the mother that just let them be. So it works in very unique ways, and the exposure, the I did not know that this colleague of mine would be able to stand up for somebody randomly there. But just telling the parent that let the child be, that was all it needed at that time. We don't have to explain about gay, lesbian, transgender. We don't even know what the child is, right? Just telling the parent that it's your child, treat them with love. You don't want them to do certain things, tell them pyar se. Don't have to abuse them physically, and just let them be.
Lovely, wonderful. I think this conversation is just like your friend who didn't know much. Just like that, I am also trying to learn what it is all about. This is something which I didn't know anything about, and this conversation is helping me actually in this journey to understand what it is. And hopefully, this conversation will reach out to people like your friend, and probably give them some context of discussion.
Sure.
If that happens, I think our job is done. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure you will continue to contribute in your own way to the community. But before we part away for this episode, what is your hope for this LGBTQIA movement in India?
I hope that we can continue to change mindsets, to build acceptance, to build solidarity, not just among outside, but also within the community, because there are so many different ways of living. There are so many also within the community, right? The divisions outside are also trickling in inside. So we also need to build allyship and solidarity between this community, also with other marginalized groups. I think my hope is that we are able to change and make the world better, uh, not just for ourselves, but also the world around us. That's my hope.
Lovely, Ritesh. So lovely with those nice words. I had the opportunity to learn so much from you today about the community and about you as a techie. I think those were very interesting facets of your life. I hope to connect with you on more such discussion, which can help me learn more about this journey of yours. And hopefully, these conversations will help other people to also have the conversation which is required in today's time. Thank you for your time, Ritesh. Thank you so much for patiently listening to some of my silly comments and questions,
So
probably, and answering them. Thank you so much.
thank you for doing this and thanks so much for the opportunity.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.